Videos like these are made possible by viewers like you, who support the channel through Patreon, channel memberships, and stream donations, as well as everyone who checks out our rebalance server at www.badweaponrehab.tf. And they're also made possible by the sponsor of today's video. Opera GX is here, and they want you to ditch your boring old browser. Yeah, it's about time someone took Edge down a peg. Now I know it's going to take some convincing for all you Edge heads out there, so how about this? GX mods will allow you to customize your browser like never before. Just about anything you can think of, from wallpapers to background music to keyboard sounds, can all be customized to your personal tastes, with tons of both official and user-created options to choose from. Alright, they got a new Vegas mod. That's good timing. I know what I'm watching with this. Opera GX's sidebar also has built-in integration with multiple different applications, including Discord and Twitter, as well as the new addition of ChatGPT and ChatSonic, letting you use these functions on the fly with a single click. So get some use out of our future AI overlords before the basilisk awakens and comes for us all. And while you're doing that, you can check the GX Corner, where you can see a comprehensive list of new and upcoming, as well as free games, and ongoing sales for games on all platforms. And with all this customization and all these features, you may think that Opera GX will be a memory vacuum, but the opposite is true. Thanks to GX Control, you can optimize your browser to take up only as much memory and CPU as it needs compared to something like Chrome. And if you're worried about all your saved accounts and passwords on your current browser, you can use the quick import tool to bring it all over to Opera GX with the click of a button. There's no reason not to leave your old browser in the dust. So click the link in the description below and download Opera GX. Thanks to them for sponsoring this video. Now let's get back into it. Soldier, this guy, he ain't that hard to play, but he is certainly hard to master. The comments on my old Liberty Launcher Bad Weapon Academy can tell you that much. Soldier is probably one of the best examples in the game to demonstrate one of the core design traits that's helped make TF2 so enduringly successful over the years. He's easy to understand, but difficult to master. This is applicable to just about every class. Even a class like Pyro, that has traditionally been seen as a class so easy a caveman can play him, has a massive skill ceiling that enables him to do all kinds of crazy things with his unique arsenal of weaponry. And when it comes to Soldier, I'm not sure if there's a better weapon that's more emblematic of this core design trait than the direct hit. Easy to understand, but hard to master. Your rockets move faster and hit harder, but you lose out on the luxury of easy splash damage, with a blast radius so small that getting multi-kills with this weapon is an amusing rarity rather than an actual strategy. Now, I've used this rocket launcher like a little bit, and it's undoubtedly one of my favorite weapons in the entire game. Like, please give this weapon an Australium, Warpaint ability, and Festivizer capabilities, please. That kind of favorite. It's right up there with the Quickie Bomb Launcher in terms of weapons, where just having a strange professional kill streak doesn't feel adequate in expressing how much I love this thing. And these weapons do share quite a lot in common. Like, oh yeah. God, one-tapping light classes is so fun with this thing. Whether you're instantly deleting a sniper you rocket jumped across the map to reach, punishing a scout who has the bright idea to run forward at you when he knows exactly what your gun is capable of, or whipping around and making spies regret their entire existence, there's something incredibly satisfying about turning those light classes into a pile of goo at close range. The funny thing is, I see more scout players than anything get furious at the existence of the direct hit because of this feature, when it's entirely their fault. I'll see plenty of scouts do exactly what you're supposed to do against normal soldiers. Hang back enough to dodge their rockets while getting chip damage in, getting on high ground, utilizing cover, baiting out rockets and punishing him. But whenever they see a direct hit soldier, they get hit by the fucking orb of confusion and just run straight at the guy hoping it'll work out for them. And hey, if the soldier reacts to the scout like how a woman only seen from the torso down in a Tom and Jerry cartoon reacts to seeing a mouse, then that might work out for him. But all it takes is flipping that switch from flight to fight in order to turn that poor scout into creamed corn. And also potentially a racist.
What? You stupid n-
But that extra damage isn't just good for spaghettifying the squishier classes. It's got plenty of applications. On top of just doing really good general damage, it demolishes sentry guns, turning this into effectively an infinite range sentry buster with the proper sightline. If a direct hit soldier has your sentry in his sights, just bust out the Wrangler, because short of a spy taking advantage of his psychotically devoted tunnel vision, nothing else is going to stop him. And when it comes to the gunslinger in particular, pretty much the only advantage that engineer has is the extra health, because there is no way a direct hit soldier is going to let that thing live when it's just a simple one-shot. But wait, there's more to be said about the boosted damage beyond just class counters, because we haven't even brought up secondary weapons. As far as I'm concerned, while just about anything is viable as a secondary choice, except like the Bison, there's two obvious picks for secondaries when you have the direct hit. Any of the shotguns and the buff banner. The shotguns work out really nicely with the direct hit for the same reason that the SMG does with the Huntsman. These are both single target elimination projectiles with the capacity for high damage, but also the capacity for leaving certain targets in the realm of the living for longer than you'd like, forcing you to commit to another small clip size, high burst damage projectile shot if you want to finish the job. Or you could swap to your secondary and just chip them down like a marble statue without wasting time or rockets. You can even go for the faster switching shotguns if you find the idea of the enemy breathing the same air as you that offensive. And in general, the shotguns are practical, consistent weapons that cover the direct hit's weaknesses. Or rather, your personal weaknesses. Which is to say, if you can't aim, take a shotgun with you. Like I said, the direct hit is easy to understand, but hard to master. And you might need a shotgun to act as a sort of training wheels while you're getting the hang of using it. Of course, that's not to say this is the only use the shotguns have. You could just as easily see it as speccing into pure damage output, because you're going so hard and so insane that 4 rockets with boosted damage simply isn't enough for you, and you have the insatiable desire to see more blood and dead bodies on your screen. It's also very useful when considering another upside of the direct hit, the projectile speed. Not only does the stat make the direct hit far more viable at longer range combat than the other rocket launchers by making those longer range rockets both harder hitting and harder for the enemy to simply step out of the way of, but it's also very helpful against combating pyros specifically. Air blasting stock speed rockets is much easier than air blasting direct hit speed rockets. So if you see a direct hit soldier using a shotgun, I want to say there's about an 80% chance he has a dartboard with the pyro's face on it in his room. Because even without the shotgun as an insurance tool, the direct hit is so useful for taking out. But besides just enabling their perfectly justified hatred for pyros, for most soldiers who have trouble with landing those directs, the shotguns will help carry you through that learning curve. Once you overcome it though, that's when the real fun begins. The buff banner is fucking insane with the direct hit. It is seriously one of the most fun weapon combos in the entire game. One-shotting light classes from close range? Fuck that. How about quickscope headshot damage at any range? Look at me. I'm the sniper now. See, I got a scope and everything. The damage buff of the direct hit makes it build up the buff banner's 600 damage charge in a reasonably quick amount of time. And with great dutes comes some seriously powerful shoots. In fact, you can even use the sheer amount of damage your normal rockets will do to your advantage by helping you charge up your buff banner even quicker against single targets. Let me give you an example. Say you hit a medic with a 140 damage rocket, leaving him at 10 health. If you hit him with another 140 damage rocket, then you've just charged up 280 damage worth of your buff banner against one 150 health target. And that's almost half of your charge. And this is because the soldier banners charge based on how much your attack should do, as opposed to how much health the enemy currently has that you're taking away. Which is part of why crits with this weapon can be particularly helpful in charging it up quickly. It's hard to call this sort of thing advanced because it's basically just melting down everything about the weapon into its base components of do way more damage, but by God you better hit those fucking shots. But I'll say it's beginner unfriendly, which is kind of the story with this weapon in general, but the direct hit still has a purpose even for those beginner players, which is to teach them the very simple fact that hitting enemies with direct rockets will deal more damage than just splash. A lot of new players can get by on nothing more than splash damage and do just fine because, hey, soldier splash damage still really fucking hurts, but hitting directs, while more challenging, is also more rewarding. And getting good at it will encourage those players to go for riskier shots for that higher reward. And while we're talking about mini crits anyway, the direct hit epitomizes this with its final, as of yet unmentioned stat. guaranteed mini crits on launched enemies. The direct hit is a satisfying weapon in general, with all those close range deletion and buff banner massacres, but I'm not sure if there's a more satisfying mechanic on the weapon than the quick 1-2 punch of launching someone in the air and obliterating them with a mini crit follow-up. Like, this sort of thing is already satisfying on the reserve shooter, but the direct hit is just its own reserve shooter. And the boosted damage of the direct hit actually makes it easier to get these juggles in the first place because they launch people straight to the damn moon. This is essentially a death sentence for anyone who gets hit by it, especially for those who use the shotgun as well, for any enemy who actually manages to survive a hit like this with what little health they'll have by the end of it. Remember that this is a direct hit mini crit, so that's over 150 damage minimum. No matter the range, there's no way anyone could survive. 28. The closer the enemy is to you, the more lethal it is, and that's especially dangerous for enemies who decide to close the gap on you with an explosive jump of their own, having already damaged themselves in the process. While I've been mostly positive, this is the one aspect of the weapon I'm somewhat mixed on. Not in regards to juggling people with your own rockets, that's always going to be awesome, but in terms of punishing people for blast jumping at all. Like, I think that punishing people for closing the distance on you should be viable, same as with one-shotting light classes, and hitting these shots is satisfying, but it's also kind of mean. Like, these guys are just jumping around trying to do their own thing, and I just smite them with the hand of God. Call me Boeing because I'm about to ground a lot of flights and kill a lot of people. Okay, there's been a whole lot of positive talk, and for good reason. I think this weapon is awesome. But what's not so fun about it? Well, that downside is pretty rough. The blast radius is comically small. The soldier may as well be chucking unprimed rockets at his enemies for all the difference it makes. It's a very all or nothing weapon, and the loss of splash radius isn't just a downside for those soldiers who use splash to get easy damage on single targets, but also in one of the situations that soldier is normally most powerful in, crowd control. The direct hit is solely for single target elimination. Even the beggar's bazooka, which similarly has a splash radius penalty, is far better at crowd control than the direct hit. So some targets will take less rockets overall in order to kill, but no matter what, you're gonna have to change your target and focus entirely on them. And when it comes to big groups, that's easier said than done. The buff banner can certainly help with this by turning most classes into paste with a single rocket, but that only further increases the all or nothing design of the weapon by removing your shotgun as a secondary option. Sometimes those rockets can be deceptively hard to hit, especially if you're new to the weapon or out of practice. And when you only need one shot to get to full banner charge, it can be seriously tense. In fact, while the other rocket launchers can pretty easily get some free banner charge through the use of spam, the direct hit just isn't as good at spam. It's decent for long range combat, which is especially good against snipers because for some reason they always seem to be extremely comfortable holding their position at like 30 health even though they're right next to resupply. But in terms of suppressive fire to keep the pressure on a choke point, the direct hit just doesn't do the job unless you get lucky and manage to hit someone as they're trying to make a move. This is a shoot to kill weapon, and I think its specialization in single target elimination is what makes it especially frustrating for certain kinds of extremely stubborn players. The direct hit is a weapon that some people really like to complain about, and I'm genuinely surprised it's not mostly engineer players. If something that takes me like a minute to build got destroyed by 2 rockets fired in a couple seconds, I think I'd be pretty pissed. But I think it's pretty easy to not take the complaints about this weapon too seriously, because 99% of the time, it's coming from scout mains who, if they had the chance, they'd turn every rocket launcher in the game into the Liberty Launcher and remove engineer altogether. Maybe that's why engineers don't complain about this weapon as much. They recognize that they and the soldiers using it have a mutual hatred of scouts. Now I've trash talked scout players a lot in this video, mostly because they deserve it, but also because they're the ones I see complaining about this weapon the most. But it's usually not the scouts who are, let's say, particularly good in the first place. They're at the easy to understand part of playing scout where you run at people's faces and kill them, but not at the hard to master part yet, where they realize there's actually supposed to be obstacles in the way of that, unless you're a psychopath. Direct hit soldiers, by way of using the direct hit to begin with, have already reached an enlightened state of mastery, where they can look down upon these poor, pitiful scout players and their lack of understanding of basic game mechanics with a sense of well-deserved smug self-righteousness. I mean, really, how hard is it to just not run at the soldier's face? It's like how some soldiers have this irresistible urge to shoot rockets at a pyro no matter what. Luckily, I'm a more enlightened breed, and I certainly never have any issues with that. Yeah, okay, but that one was bullshit and you know it.
I am one man with nary a medic to my name. Why are you like this? Why is this? Medic is running at a fucking pyro jetpacking like 75 feet away while their medic is at our spawn camping with a fucking nail gun.